Going live says I'm live now. Okay, so let me check the volume on this. Turn that down a little bit. Okay, so what's happening today is I will be stitching together this book. And so what I need to do for that is I've got all the pages and the covers here. They all have holes in them that are that are necessary. So now I need to get my thread. I'm also going to use this bit of beeswax and a curved needle. There's a curved needle, and I'm going to be using this embroidery thread. Floss? No, thread. And I'm going to run it pressing, holding, and just pulling it through this beeswax a couple times in one direction, and then I'll go in the opposite direction, and that coats it in a little bit of wax that makes it less likely to get into a knot. It also sort of just makes it a little bit sturdier feeling. So like when you pull it through, it has a little bit of lubrication to it, and it doesn't get stuck, and it's a little bit more it holds its shape a little bit in a way that is advantageous. Thread the needle. It'll just let me pull this through. We'll be good. Come on. Okay. Now I got a little bit of that. I'll pull it with a little bit of aplomb. I don't know what word is. And then tie a knot on this back end. A couple times to make it thick enough to where it'll stop in the hole that is cut in the paper. Need to keep these in order, so before I start into any actual threading or stitching, I'm going to make sure these pages are in order. Three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, I'm going to set this here. These actually have an orientation and a direction, where in the past they have not. They've just been sort of parallel, but so it comes out the middle, goes around and into the cover. This is perhaps a bit more chaotic at the get-go. This gets a lot easier as you move along. So pull that, and then go around. Pull it through. Make sure it's tight. And then back out. And do it again. loop back through, pull it out, tight, and back in. Again. And through the outside. Through. Around once, pull it through, and out. And last one for this signature. Comes out, comes in. Around once, and then it will come into the preview or the next signature. And then things move a little bit faster for a few pages. This is page 4, 5. No, I need 3, 4. And for the first one, just goes in. And then comes out. Tighten that a bit. Not too tight, don't want to tear the paper. And loop around. A little bit of freedom. Let that go. Pull that a little bit tighter. And then back out. Tight, and back in. Out. Around and next folder or next signature. Out. Around. And back out. and out. Out. And around. And then we'll go into this guy. This is 7, 8. I gotta make sure that this next bit is oriented correctly. Yep. How did I do this before? Okay, I just linked it to the next one, I believe. Which makes sense. Puts more stress on the thread than on the page. I think this is slightly different, but it'll still work. Okay. That's 9. This is just me saying something out loud, but I need to soon, I need to replace the blade on my cricket cutter. Somewhere I have some tape. I need to just use a little bit of tape because I just tore this page. Small piece of linen tape. Hello, Amy. How you doing? I think you're the only person watching that isn't me. If you're still there, I've been stitching for a minute and didn't look at my phone to see if anyone had done anything. It's been a minute because it's not on the preview, but thanks for joining. Okay, now I'm going to just through these a little bit. But if you are watching and have any questions, throw them out and I'll try to answer. Now, I am making a book. Let me get my headphones on so I can hear if I'm talking loud enough. Okay, so I'll just talk through it all. The plan is for it to be an animation book of sorts. And I've been going through different iterations. The earliest form, I've got a bunch of tests here I can show you. Let's see. Earliest ones are ones like this, where I want it to fold out into a circular form and be able to spin. And the first thing that I had was just, here's a folded section and you have a latch up top. And that latch was fine, but it's not you have to know what you're doing in order to interact with it. It doesn't have like an innate understanding of how it functions. So then I moved on to, what else is in here? Not that one. Where's the little book? There it is. Okay. This was just a different test that had a similar mechanism but not quite the same, where the pages can slide out as you open, but they don't on their own slide out. You have to force it yourself, and then eventually it folds out into a... This is more of a star form, but I ultimately want it to be more circular by having the tabs sort of force their way out. This one felt better, but it's still not there. And then I have this one that has a different latching mechanism that holds it in place a little bit better, but it still is something where you have to know what you're doing. It's not intuitive. And so after that, I tried these guys, where when you open it, they fall down, and it creates a pretty good thing. But there are issues with how everything interacts, and it's a lot of extraneous things. So these are made... I've been using a program. I can show you the program. Let me open up a new web page, or new browser window, I guess. Cuddle XYZ. And I can show you the most recent iteration that's the most complex. So let me open up this window. One moment. Firefox. Bigger book. Let's see if this is the... Yeah. Okay, so this is a browser-based program that you can do some... It's meant for using with CNC machines. So what I have is a Cricut. Oh, is that showing up right now? Yeah, okay, my phone's a little delayed. For using with a CNC, so it outputs these shapes, and you can put different parameters on the shapes. And so I have a bunch of these different elements that are built in, and they affect different parts of these shapes. So there's like a rectangle here, and the size of this, I got a bunch of different variables, are the spoke length minus the slit width, which is just this little space between the tab and the page. So that's the width. So if I come up here and I change a variable for, where is it? Where's page length? Num pages. Oh, spoke length is what it is. And I call it spoke because it's the middle of sort of a wheel. So if I increase this, that increases. And I can come back and manipulate those elements as it goes along. And so I created all these parameters, and then I test things out, see how it goes, and then come back and change elements and sort of build out these forms. And there's other elements like the paper thickness will affect how large these cuts are, because if I'm working with thicker paper, I want to be able to make the slits and stuff a little bit larger. If I want the pages to be taller, I can adjust that, and that adjusts all of these tabs and stuff at the same time. And so, yeah. And so how this one is built is there is a rectangle here, and then there's a small rectangle here, and then a cutout rectangle, and then this little insert page that has some math thrown on it that makes it so when I insert it, I have enough space to where I can slide in a different component. And then once all of that's done, there's an effect on it that has it mirror. So it just flips across the axis and then creates this full page, and all the holes are set up in there. And if I want the hole size to be larger, I can make those larger. If I want it to have more holes, then I can increase, and it has some math on there that will work accordingly. Let me just reset that so that I don't forget. And then the more complex thing that I did was I worked it out to have these little animations cut out. So here are these tabs. I have this component which I imported from Illustrator, where I made all the frames of this little animation. Do I have that weird thing set up? Animation test, is it going to work? Not anymore. Okay. Let me grab this whole deal. And the position is 6.4 times animation test. This will just let you see what the animation looks like. It's running real slow. Because it's affecting a lot of stuff. A lot of iterations of things. But let's turn that back to 0. And so I have this as a sprite sheet, and then that sprite sheet is brought into these little tabs that are cutouts that interact with the page. Anyway, so I'd send this out and use Cricut Cutter, which is a blade CNC machine that cuts paper pretty accurately, enough accuracy for me. And so I did that with a bunch of different book tests. I'm going to exit out of this and turn off the Firefox thing and come back here. So different iterations. This one fell down, but then you have all these extra pieces coming out here, and if you are opening the book fully, it really depends how you have it positioned to where the tabs fall down. And then I was like, why not just have, when I was messing with this and I added some elements, it made these sections really weak, but it had a nice feel to it. So I just decided to focus on that. And then I made these tabs. I tried having them fold out. It feels nicer when they fold down if they're set up to where they fold out. But if that's the case, then I have to make the cover that much longer to cover the full length of the book, because when this is unfolded, it comes down. So it's a little bit awkward. So then I decided to have them fold out like this. And so that's generally the most recent ones. This is the one that's weaker. You can see like when it pulls those tabs that push out. I'm not 100% sure how well this will work in the end game of things. But see, I think this is the next most sort of successful form. And then I tried it with using the covers. There's also magnets buried in these. Eventually they can be spun. I can show you an example of that in just a moment. Let me put these books away and grab the most recent one that actually folds out and has a sort of thing about it. So this one doesn't have the things cut into it, but one of the issues that I came across was the magnets that I bought aren't strong enough to go through all of this paper and hold it closed, but they are strong enough to go through about half of the paper. Also, when this is fully opened up, if the magnets and covers both connect on the same side of this sort of middle section, the weight is really off. And by having this cover in the middle, it adds another connection point for the magnets and makes it so the weight is more evenly distributed, at least across one axis. And so the idea at this point is, like, you can open it around something like this, just a paintbrush, and then it can spin. And this is the best form that I've gotten to this point, where it opens very smoothly. It's intuitive. The math is all correct. The issues that might come about once I fully assemble everything is how close you have to be to the spinning disc in order to visually see the animation on the interior. I've had mixed results in small trials of things, and so I'm connecting everything together and seeing how it all ends up working. But the feel on this, really nice and fun. It feels kind of like a fan, one of those fans that you open up. And it's very sturdy, holds itself up relatively well. For the amount of like little points that it has potential weakness, as a structure it holds up pretty well, which I'm happy with that. The structure itself is interesting. The issues that come up are functionality as here was another test that instead of having this one, I don't know how clear it is on camera, but each of these, I'm just going to say, like, in one of these slices, there's 2 spokes and 2 tabs that are not like bound to each other through any really strong physical connection. Like up here, there's a tab that goes into this middle section, tab that goes around here, and various bits and pieces. And so that makes for a very smooth pivot. But it also has extra little bits and pieces up here. And so I tried doing it as being half folded so that the inserted sections would be buried, but it really pushes out too much, and so it doesn't feel as nice and smooth. So that one actually came after this test, but I decided against it for the most part. I did use the folded tabs for where it comes into contact with the cover, because I have to build that in. So at this point, this is pretty much done here. I need to, what I'm going to do is tape down these last pages on these 2 last pages, and then I need to tape down, no, I'll wait to tape down the other tabs. These already have like a fine connection to the rest of the book, but anyway. So I'm just going to use some double-sided tape and apply it to two of these pages. Just try to get this relatively well placed. And so cut into these tabs. It's probably easiest to see sort of from this position. This is cut out, and then I pushed it down and flicked some ink on it to create a silhouette of the figure on the interior of the pages for each of these. And those are the animation frames themselves. I have one more to tape down, which will tape to this cover. And now I need to attach a bunch of smaller tabs that will connect the spokes together. And those are over here. And hopefully all my math is right on these. I don't know why it would suddenly not be, but there's always a possibility that something went wrong. And I'll have to fix it, which is okay. So that's how it goes. These will fix to 2 of the other covers. But I think this is all I need. So this is a process that I've gotten a bit better at, but there is direction to it. I like process. So there are holes cut in here, and this has to insert up through here and slide through. And then it's got to go down into these. And now it closes. But there's an order of how things have to be inserted in order to function correctly. And there's like just enough room, and the accuracy of the Cricut for cutting things out is not perfect. So some of these end up getting slightly bent. Okay, that is something that I need to be aware of for future bits, is whatever this overlap is has to clear the cutting area if you want to view the whole thing. This is a lot of work on the front end for potentially something that will work with a bunch of different animations or formats, because all the math is in there where I can change what the number of pages is, what the size of everything is, and it'll spit out something that will function similarly. It might be a little bit off in one way or another. Like for having this middle cover section, you have to have a multiple of 4, because it has to divide evenly into 4, because you need to have an even number split in half. Oh, why am I doing that yet? And then in half again. You need an even number just for the fact that the pages are folded. Because if you have one page, that doesn't work. You can't. Or if you have 3 pages, you have to have an even number of pages for this stitching method. And then you have to have an even number on either side of the middle cover, which means you need an even, which is 2, a multiple of 2, and then you need that to be also 2 again, which means you need 4. What's going on with that? Come on through. Let's try the other direction. There's a chance this just straight up doesn't work. Elements of it work, but there's always a potential to make something at least better. So now, there's that half. Some of these are a little finicky, but should work. And then next half. And then I have to glue a set of tabs onto the front and last cover. Okay, and And there's a structure. Okay, now is my moment of truth. See whether or not the animation works or not, which I might have to adjust things on. And this is something that I don't think that you'll be able to pick up on camera, at least not how it's set up right now. This is kind of not working. I think it's too close. Because if I'm looking through here, I have to look over there. Okay. Structurally, it works. But you need a greater distance. This worked with one where things were spaced a bit differently. You could work with a strobe light, but there's not really a... I want it to work just on its own. Something that I looked at, but I have not figured out any of the math on, is having this have a pop-up book element. So where you have these folds, the structure works okay. It does what it needs to do. But let's say, and it holds in its an interesting form. It's either too many frames or too small. I think if it were fewer frames, I have this just sort of structural version of it that's 8 frames. Down the number of frames, make it a simpler animation. It should work if you're looking through and like spinning something. Because right here, I think it might just be too ambitious for the number of frames. It could be 12. But when you look at like classic zoetrope, you're looking across the way. And in my mind, the thing that helped with that was that it's passing by faster. Because if it's moving here on the opposite side, it's moving the opposite direction. And so when you look through a slit on a zoetrope and it pops this way, the slit is moving this way. And so you're getting a faster pace of it. This worked when I did it small. I could sort of trick my eye into seeing it. But these are tiny frames. Like, look at how large that is. I could probably get away with this structure, this size, this many frames, if I were working with... That's a little bit loose. Need to reinforce that. Which might be doing another full page deal. But that exists on its own. I can reinforce that. But the distance that you have, if this... I could also try doing the same structure, but having the little running figure be like midway down the page. The issue is that to see the figure, you have to be like right up on the thing. I could have it where I adhere all the tab. This would also help with different sort of element. I could actually do it with this book, except for the last frames, which I can figure something out. But instead of having everything going in this direction, let me spraying them on this side so that this is a little bit darker. You get the full effect of this whole section is blacked out a little bit more. And then it's further down. I'm just going to try that. So I'm going to unattach all of these. The issue is the back page because it's adhered to this back section. I could like pull it down, cut it off. I might just do that and then reattach it. And then I'll just glue it back. Okay, that works. And it's still adhered. Okay, so let's undo all these. And I'm going to flick some more paint. And that'll black out more of the tabs. Don't tear. These are easier to force on than force off. Paper could also have warped a bit when the ink was applied to it. Okay, I do need to put some paper here. Tore a little bit. These give me like just enough clearance, and if I'm only doing it once, that's whatever. Strobe light could help. Sorry I didn't like clarify on that. But you have to time things correctly, and you would be viewing it from above, not from below. Okay, let's get some ink. Piece of paper. And this piece of paper just keeps my desk a little less messy. Let's get this curved needle out of the way. Get that ink that I had mentioned. And where did I put this? I'll get the music going again in a second. My fingers are just messy, and this is easier to do all at once. Everything's gonna have a little bit of ink on it now. Okay, I'm gonna let these guys dry a little. Put on the B side. I'm gonna go wash my hands quick. Apply a little bit more of this again. Now let's see how this looks or functions from my perspective. That works better. It's not lost, but it works a bit. I think what would help is fewer frames, larger gaps, bigger figures. Dropping this down to like 12 frames, having a bigger contrast of what it is that you're seeing. Because right now it's a very small gap. I like having the connection between the thing. You know what I'm going to just try and do? I'm going to try and just make this, or maybe paint it even. Just paint these a little bit darker. I think it might help. Okay, sorry, it's just me spinning this for a while. It works better. Let's see if I can... Let's get a little more light on. It works better. Different animation would work better overall. Having these little black sections helps a lot. I think conceptually, if I were to like really load on the spray, that would be helpful. Black is the best option there. If I could get this a little bit further away and have a larger gap of the animation itself, that would all be helpful as well. So this works, still needs refinement. Because I set up everything in the, this is has a little bit more resistance with the ink painted on it, gives it a little bit more pullback. Another option, cut it out of black paper and spray an opaque paint through. But that black ink both adds material and it's causing the paper to curl a bit. Or it could just be black tabs. I can cut the paper out. I've got some black paper, but I might need to find something that's a little less... the black paper that I have is a little heftier and a little softer as well. It's weird. It's thicker but softer. This works, but only just. And I would like it to work better. And something for that is fewer frames. With fewer frames, there are fewer spokes. With fewer spokes, the gap between the pages is that much wider, because this is 8, and each of these is twice as wide, even though, or it's about twice as wide because the spokes aren't as long, which means that it would fall further down. If I were doing this where I use these, the amount of space that I have available is greater. I think this is something where I might need to just make an animation that is specifically for this and have it be like 8 or 12 frames. I can still work with something of about this size. Also, if I make it taller, that's an option. It just means I go through more paper. Black tabs? Question mark. Meaning that these outside little sections would be made of black paper as opposed to white, because this is also not doing its thing anymore. Yeah, so it's a learning bit. I was hopeful that today would be like, well, bam, it works perfectly. It works okay for as being an animation tool. As a structure, it's fun, still feels good. I'm still happy about the general form of it. I just need to spend some more time with what goes into it. This was just testing something that I had pre-existing, and it's lacking as a result. If I use black paper for the tabs, white paper for the interior, that means that I would have to make a little bit of an adjustment on this far edge, or it would just be black. Doesn't really matter, because it won't be painted on, actually. It does matter, because it would be part of this section, so I would just need to make a second tab of this and have this page be blank and attach it underneath. So yeah, it's an interesting form still. It still looks like an interesting thing, and if I were to record this, like photograph it, rotate it, it would look interesting, but it isn't what I want it to be at this point in time. I was hopeful, but it's not. It's a sort of thing of like figuring out what it is about the different elements that are better, what's worse, and figuring things out from there. I could also like do a walk cycle, run cycle, or something where it's a silhouette. Can't be too complex. It's got to be like general motion, but it can be. I'm also curious about this motion because I feel like if I were to get it smooth and with enough distance between them that I could get that as a form of an animation. That's fun to mess with, but the back and forth would be something to resolve. Okay, so for tomorrow, I think I need to make an animation that is specifically for this format, and with that, have it be large enough gaps. It would be like a single figure or something that's just a cutout because I'm limited in what can be done physically. Because if it's a stencil, it has to be its own deal. Ideally larger gaps, larger section. So if I work out, if I get the dimensions of this, I can make it larger because really I think that this fits better in this direction at this scale, so not the best for that space. Drop it down to 8 or 12 frames. If it's 8 frames, I think it'll work better with the like physical mechanics of it all. And yeah, and potentially have black tabs. And if I do that, then I need to change how these attach here to be where it goes behind the paper as opposed to attached to the spoke. So that's it for today. I think tomorrow I will be working on a new animation. It shouldn't be too complex, but make an animation and then translate it to be a vector of some kind that would work well within the shape and size and whatever of these tabs of one of these guys, or possibly even that it like now it needs to be on one of them so it can fold down and fill the thing. So these gotta spin this way. Still like the form. And then that justifies me not wanting it to be fully. Nope, it actually doesn't. Whatever. I'm just thinking out loud. So that's a plan for tomorrow, is to animate with fewer frames and have the aspect ratio be built in according to the structure of the book itself. Spiel time. If you want to buy stuff from me, you can go to my web store, traceloops.com/store. If you want to purchase something and have it shipped outside of the US, you can email me, traceloops@traceloops.com. You can also email me with comments, concerns, questions, curiosities, commissions, etc., etc. Again, that is traceloops@traceloops.com. If you want to watch this stream at your own leisure at a later point in time, you can do so by going to the live section of my YouTube channel, where you will find recordings of all my live streams that I've done on YouTube in recent times. I forget. Since the new year. Switched to YouTube and started recording the streams for just whoever wants to see them. So you can go back and see all the process of how I got to where I am with the book as it is now. Or most of it. Some of it I do on my own time because it's not fun to watch. If you want to follow me on other platforms, you can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Tumblr, Spotify, all of those places. I'm Traceloops, TRACELOOPS. If you want to support me on Patreon, you can do so by going to patreon.com/Traceloops, where you will find high-resolution versions of artwork that I create during streams when they're scanned and completed. So there's not any of these book things, but there's a lot of older work if you want to like see it at full res and download and mess with it on your own accord for personal use. And then at higher tiers, you get new songs from me weekdays. Oh, you also find a selection of tutorials. And then at higher tiers, you get a new song from me weekdays. And at the highest tier, you get a monthly postcard from me with original artwork on the front, little message on the back, and a discount to that aforementioned web store. I believe that's it for today. Yeah. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a good afternoon. And I'll work on an animation tomorrow based off of what is the right format for the book as it gets created. So, adios.